like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Nothing gear.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
The quiet man.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Dopamine. Jim.
It's all my love. It's all my love. It's all my love.
The brain.
Welcome to the Soul Patch Podcast, the podcast where three expats discuss education, culture, and life on the Korean Peninsula. I'm Ryan. I'm here with my friends Jack and Kevin. Guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Good. Yeah.
So tonight we've pulled together a few different subjects relating to how we adjust and how we've adapted initially to our life and our lifestyles here in Korea and Seoul. And to kick things off, I want to talk about a very common buzzy phrase, an idiom that everybody knows, culture shock. So when you hear the word culture shock, Kev, what do you think? Oh, what's up?
I've got things happening behind me. Sorry.
All right, Jack, you're up.
All right. I'm up.
What do you think? What do you think of culture shock? Like, what does that mean to you? What do you picture?
I think it's like it's over stimulus. It's too much stimulus in your visually, things that you hear. For me, it was the initial culture shock. For me, happened when I left the Don Muang Airport in Thailand and just saw this traffic that was unlike anything I'd ever seen before, and this kind of jungly looking, just a different planet. And so that too much stimulus and feeling overwhelmed by it is what I think they're describing when they say culture shock, but that's just my definition.
That sounds
so where like the excitement and the newness becomes too much. You said
It's everything is exaggerated. Even the language is foreign, and everything sounds so bizarre that you feel like you're just alone surrounded by people and all alone at the same time, and it's a very strange feeling.
Do you feel like for me, I mean, it can still happen when I travel other places just about every year, except for, now COVID stuff. But usually every year I spend a month or 2 months in a new country, and it can still happen. I find that when I have that feeling, those peak experiences where you're overwhelmed, I feel like I'm more sensitive to other things like smells. A smell that normally wouldn't really bother me, but because my brain and everything, I'm just receiving all this noise, it's all turned up a little bit. And that's, for me, that's culture shock. It's like I can recognize that happening. It's like, whoa, okay, I need to find a cafe.
It's almost like spidey senses or something like that,
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like everything just gets like really technicolor, and it's like, yeah, maybe today is going to be an easy day. I don't know, Kev, do you get blown away like that?
I mean, I can definitely understand what you're saying, but I can't think of any time where I was like shocked where I needed to take a time out like that, where I needed like a
nap,
put myself out. Yeah, I need a nap today. Like I can't handle, or not that I can't handle, but I'm having a bad time dealing with.
You
this
never
right now.
felt overwhelmed in that situation, like in a culture shock situation?
I can't think of any specific specific times that I have. I'm sure it must have happened. But.
So you tend to kind of lean into it. It sounds like maybe Kev, maybe it affects people in different ways. I know some people, after I had been living here for several years, I had made some friends that recently came here. And they came from a rural place in a country that's predominantly rural. And they were not, I was going to use the word scared. They're not scared, but like they refused to take the bus for months.
Yeah.
Just because
I was the same way.
Just because it's a bus. Yeah. And
I thought I would get lost.
Like,
yeah.
That's why I didn't take the bus either.
Yeah, but for Jack, that's understandable because that's like before smartphones. You had like a paper map, right?
I literally, the people told me this bus in front of our school in Thailand will go to the Bangkok Mall, but you
Yeah.
just stay on it. And I'm like, yeah, but what if it doesn't? And then I just, wherever I end up, that's where I live now, forever. So
Getting off the
it's
bus.
my new home.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, since we're also talking about Korea, let's bring it back to this. So, Kev, since it sounds like you had maybe the lighter version of culture shock, what would you consider to be the most surprising? So we'll say light culture shock then. What was the most surprising thing for you initially when you arrived? Like, give me something. What was like
I mean, I
unexpected?
remember, I think probably food and or even something really small. It's the small things that I think are more interesting. I still remember when I very first got here, I got picked up from the airport from the Wanjing Meme at my hagwon, and she took me to my apartment, and she's like, "Here you are," and I'm just like, this is crazy. I've got my backpacks on and everything, and I just stroll into my apartment. She's like, "Stop! Take off your shoes!" It's like I jumped into the air. I was like,
Oh.
"Oh shit, sorry." And that was just like a small thing. Of course, I knew that shoes aren't a thing here. And actually, my apartment, my roommates back in Flagstaff, we had a no shoe policy, so this should have been easy for me.
I grew up
I
with
just
a no shoe policy my whole
it
life.
makes sense,
Yeah.
actually. When I go
Yeah.
back now and I see people wearing shoes in their apartments back home, especially with carpet, it's terrible.
I know, it's
dirty.
so
It's
disgusting.
really bad.
It's weird. Just weird.
Yeah, it is. So that was like a really small thing, and then I think just a couple days later, there was the first kind of Heishik that my company went out on, where it was like nakji soup, squid soup, and I still remember, like we come out and the soup is on fire in front of me on the table, and it's like that's cool, and then they like drop a live squid on top of it. And I'm like, that's less cool. But I think like that was very surprising. I'd only been here 2-3 nights, something like that, and it was just like, whoa, there's food dying in front of me. That's weird.
Yeah.
They eat it fresh here.
Live fire and live animals on the table.
Yeah,
Like
the live fire is very
Korea.
cool. The live animals is a bit shocking. But I don't remember how I handled. I think I just was like, all right, so rice. No, I'm sure I actually had some of the soup, but I don't. Yeah, I was just like,
That's a pretty dramatic meal to start off with. You know what I mean? That's not like a bibimbap or a kimbap, roll. That's
now that I think back to it, I wonder if they were like, let's take the foreigner out to something kind of crazy.
Oh,
Let's just mess with his head.
Man.
Yeah,
That's definitely what's going on. I got the same. I had
be.
almost the same drill. It wasn't. I wasn't working, but I had a small community of guys that I was, I knew were in Busan. So it was I arrived at like 2 a.m. So it was the first night after. So I don't know anything, and they took me out to. I recommend it if you're in Busan. I haven't been down there in a couple of years. I think it's probably, hopefully preserved. It's called Cheongsapo. If you go to Haeundae and you go to the, I guess was that northeast end of Haeundae Beach, like you can't take the subway there. You got to either take a taxi or it's kind of a long hike. But anyway, you get out to this little area where there's all rocks, kind of like the breakers. Isn't what they call that, where the waves crash?
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
So yeah, in the warmer months, the kind of pojang matcha type restaurants, like tented restaurants, they'll take their tables and just set them outside. There's no umbrella, anything. You're just sitting outside, and it's it's fire. You're sitting next to the ocean. You can see the lights of the boats bobbing on the horizon, squid boats out there. Yeah, it's just awesome. So they took me there, and it's the chogegui, which is like shellfish, like what do you call it, clams and stuff like this. So it's really beautiful. You got this big spread on the fire, all these shells. It's exotic looking. And that was impressive enough. It was just cool. It just kept bringing all these shells. What are the ones called? Garibi?
You know food better than I do.
The one, for anybody that doesn't speak Korean, it's the ones that look like mermaid bra, area.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right, the mermaid bra?
Yeah,
right.
right.
Scallops.
Yeah,
I can't
scallops.
think of the word. Yeah. So I mean, they look really pretty on the fire, and so I thought that was kind of a meal. And then very quickly, someone shows up at the table, and they've got an eel that's been skinned and chopped into like 4-inch sections, 3-inch sections, and they dump it on the fire and it starts dancing. I mean, this meat's coming off the grill. I mean, it's literally like still twitching, and it's people are like kind of fighting to put it back. Yeah.
No, cook, die.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was my Squid Nakji like old jingle kind of experience, and I was like, wow, I think I've seen this on TV somewhere, but never. Yeah. Jack, what was your like most memorable like first meal or thing like this?
You know what I remember were this is back in 2001, and at the time there were these they're still, I think they're still around now, but there are what do you call it, like a all you can eat meat buffet. That was like the thing at that time. There was even a restaurant called Kearney Station that had all you can eat
With the Brazilian
Gelby and bulgogi and stuff like that. Okay. All you could drink beer and all you can drink whiskey for $20. Yeah,
oh, no.
$20.
Oh no!
Oh no is right. Yeah, that you've hit the nail on the head. But it comes back to like the convivial nature of Korea. The eating and drinking is so important to them here, and that is the thing that I think I appreciated the most, because there was nothing like drinking some soju and eating galbi together with your workmates after, on a Friday night, and just how like silly and funny everything got, and just how happy I felt at the time. I was just like, I am so happy sitting here on the floor. I'm a big guy too. I'm 6'8", over 2 meters, and sitting on the floor is not usually a fun experience, but I love sitting at that long table with a lot of people, drinking soju, eating galbi. I have some of the best memories of those times.
Yeah, the communal aspect of life here in general, but especially dining, that was really surprising for me coming from Chicago. So in Chicago, I had a routine where it was a couple nights a week where I would go and have dinner by myself. I was a very busy guy at the time. I love cooking. I just didn't have time for it, and so it was just these 2 nights a week. I always hit the same place. I always ordered the same thing, and I brought my notes with me because I was a student, and I ate my dinner.
That's a totally normal thing, though.
And I studied for a little bit, enjoyed my cup of coffee. That's what you do. So when I arrived in Busan, I didn't need to be doing anything like that, but I still had I had objectives, right? So I had, the desire to, read, take notes, do things. Of course, I can go to a cafe, a coffee shop, but I'm in my own routines. I couldn't find a place. Where I felt comfortable eating alone. It seemed like so many places.
Yeah.
Even if you go to a place like Kim Up Cheongguk, which commonly, you can eat there by yourself. Very rarely will you see someone else eating by themselves. It's usually with at least one friend. Yeah.
I was at Kim Up Cheongguk or Kim Up something pretty much every day when I first got to Korea, solo for lunch. That was me alone every day anyway.
Well, this I remember
here, you in the corner there looking at each other.
Probably.
I remember I used to live near in Shincheon. If you guys know the Hongdae area, Shincheon is near Yonsei-dae, and my apartment was in the middle of Shincheon. So there was a bar underneath my apartment, and a bar underneath that bar, and then 3 bars next door and 3 bars across the street, and just bars everywhere. And I forgot what the point. Oh, so but I remember going there for the first time to Shincheon at night, and it was like Las Vegas. It was lit up like a Christmas tree, festooned with neon. And I was like, oh my God, I've arrived, Mecca. This is the best place on earth. Korea is awesome. And we went in the first bar, empty. It's just nothing, nobody there. Went to another bar, empty, and that bar had partitions. So not only there was glass between the tables. So it's built for one group to come in and drink together and to not intersect with another group. And so I was like, well, okay, so this is not what it appeared on the outside, from the street. It looked like it was just wild Las Vegas, kind of a place. And Shincheon is fun.
That's a kind of a cool thing. That's a cool thing in Korea, right? Like in not just like in a bar or a pub, but even in a lot of restaurants. And it can be any I don't know, any caliber of restaurant. You'll find places. It's pretty common. They'll have like a party room or multiple rooms, or there'll be like a little bit of segregation among your ability to be segregated if you want to. Like
I love it for Noribang, like for singing rooms were the greatest thing. I love them. I
still love them.
They're amazing.
It's stupid fun. Just
so much better than a karaoke bar.
Oh, it's just chaos.
They suck.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different from a karaoke bar, like Black and White. I never really enjoyed that. I got dragged on stage a few times back in America. Not my thing. But Noraebang, I don't know why. I guess it is because there's less people there that you don't know. I don't know.
It's less shame. I go nuts.
It's just, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something great about it.
Order chicken and sing a song. Just get some fried chicken and sing along. So I want to shift a little bit. I want to talk about the community that you arrived to. So not the one that necessarily you have today or whatever grew out of your experience of living here, but when you landed on the ground. So I talked a little bit about this in, I believe, the first podcast we did. I arrived in a funny situation because I had a friend here who had been here for more than a year. And what I didn't mention in that one is that he actually arrived when one of his friends had been here for a couple years. So there was this group of people that I arrived to. So I had a pretty easy going of, if I couldn't figure out how to do something, I could always just call someone. I was seldom alone in that first like 6 months because of that community. Kev, you had mentioned something about a mentor.
Oh, I would kind of, yeah. So I didn't come here knowing anyone at all. So I didn't have that like feeling of comfort, but I got really lucky because the Hagwon where I was working, there was one other foreigner there, and he was a Gyopo dude, James. And I still keep in touch with him. Actually, he's back in the States now, but I've been in touch somewhat recently now that I've got an Apple device and he's got Apple devices, so we can talk easy. But I got really lucky because he's Gyopo, so he understood Korea and he understood Korean as well. I remember actually talking to him because we were out at like Kimbap Jungkook one day for lunch, and he's like, "Oh, it's comfort food, kimchi jjigae. It's like my mom used to make." I was like, "That's just weird because I love it. It's kimchi jjigae, but it's not comfort food for me."
It's not tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich.
No. Yeah. So he was very, and he'd already been here in Korea for a bit less than a year, I think, at the time when I arrived. So he was already familiar kind of with the culture even before he came here. And then he'd been here long enough to really understand what was going on. And he and I being the only two foreigners that we worked at, and really in our entire neighborhood in Mokdong at the time, there was like 5 foreigners total. You knew them like walking across the street. It's like, oh, there's that dude. Oh, there's that guy. There's that girl over there. Like there's the few of us in the neighborhood. It was very, very small group. So it was really just James and I. But I got really lucky because we didn't have anyone else really. He had a couple of other friends, but not too many. And in the neighborhood, no one. So we'd finish work and we'd go out to dinner together almost every night. He was doing martial arts here at the time, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come with me?" And I was like, "Sure, what the hell?" So I started doing martial arts in Korean when I spoke no Korean with him, and he just kind of like helped translate it, and I just followed along with the punches and kicks. And so he really like brought me into Korea. When we're at a restaurant and he calls out like "Jogyo," I was like, "You can do that here?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's how it works." Like so I was able to learn some Korean from him and learn like basic things, and so he kind of just pulled me into the culture and explained things and made it seem less weird than it was as well, I think. So that he really made Korea that first year comfortable for me. So James,
that's like I feel in some ways, I had a great experience, but I can see like that being better in a lot of ways because you have someone that's kind of relying on you also. So you build like, a real bond. You got a brother right away.
Oh
That's
yeah,
kind of cool.
we were. He'd call me half the time because he was just bored at night. Like I don't know anyone,
Yeah,
but he had
that's
some people
cool.
here as well, but not as many.
I think that's
Yeah.
the
Jack, how
that's the
about
thing.
you?
Yeah, I think I know that there are tens of thousands of friendships that came out of Hagwons. You know what I mean? It's like just there. I think like Ryan, you didn't have the Hagwon experience, right? Yeah, there's something unique about it. Just they become your friends for the most part. I've known a few people that didn't connect with their coworkers at a Hagwon, but more often than not, the people you work with are the people you go out with on the weekend, and you become friends. And even if you're not, I don't know. Totally alike, but you might not have been friends otherwise, but you're put in that situation where you're kind
Oh
of,
yeah.
I think, like I said,
Yeah.
I don't know if I said this or not, but like Korea is kind of insta life. I think I said that in the first podcast was, and the Hagwon is like insta friends. You've got a
Yeah.
friend network immediately, and you've got a place to stay, and you got a little coin in your pocket, and the subway system to take you anywhere you want to go. In the city, it's a pretty awesome, deal that was available,
Yeah.
and not many people know
And
about it.
it's worth mentioning that again. Uh, Again, for listeners, the Hagwon, if you're not familiar with this, you can look it up. It's a very famous system here of basically tutoring classes that are outside the public school system. So think
They're
of like the piano
institutes,
lessons you got when
essentially.
you were a
Yeah.
kid. Yeah. But
And note that there's
this is
Hagwons for everything in Korea. Most of us
exactly,
are teaching
exactly.
English Hagwons, but I think I remember hearing rumors of StarCraft Hagwons when I first got here, and I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised
sure.
That
if
would
such a
not
thing.
surprise
Sure.
me at all. I thought pizza school
Yeah.
was a
So
Hagwon for making pizza, but I was wrong about that.
It really
so
should be,
there's
actually.
Yeah.
What the hell?
there's a distinction between the Hagwon and then the public school system. And I think usually people look down a little bit on the Hagwon and then higher on the public school system, public
Definitely.
school system. You tend to get your paychecks on time, things like this. It's a little more organized, has a little more stability. And Hagwon, obviously anybody could really run one. So there's obviously going to be a spectrum of good ones to bad ones that you might find a job at. But I think what Jack just said was really interesting about making friends in that place. And I was wondering, I'm thinking, because maybe that's something that is unique to the Hagwon and not public school, because in a public school, from what I know, you are going to be the foreigner there. You're not, and the other teachers you're working with, most of them are going to be much older than you, and you're not sharing a similar experience. Whereas at a Hagwon, you might be working with other people that are foreigners, sharing a similar experience, and other Koreans that are at a mutual age to you. So it's more of I think it's a little more of a little party, right?
I think the public school is kind of like if there's a hierarchy, I would say it probably ranks higher than the Hagwon, and that people transition from the Hagwon to the public school. They feel like they've made an upward.
But I'm saying that on the other hand, like the benefit of going towards like working at Hagwon is that you have probably a faster social integration, because there's going to be just more of
100%
newbies.
How big was the Hagwon you were at, Jack, when you first came here?
I think the first one I was at, there were probably 8 of us, something like that. Okay. Kind of like right in the middle, It wasn't a small one, and it wasn't a monster. It was just, I mean, the thing about a Hagwon you have to remember is it's private education, right? So it's a money making operation. It's a business. They're trying to make money, and so and in the public school situation, it's just the money has already been allotted. Like nobody cares. It's just a very different. It's not like, oh, you're going to teach another 3 classes that we can cram in here because we were able to pick up 15 new kids last week or whatever. And And so, but if I were to advise someone, if I had a nephew my nephew's just a baby, but if he were 22, just graduated from university, and he was looking for a cool experience, I would totally point him towards the Hagwon, not a public school, because you're just going to make those friends with those people immediately, and they're also probably new. They might be new to Korea, or they might have 6 months under their belt, and it'll be the perfect introduction into all the cool stuff that you get to discover when you first come here. But it's kind of hidden, you know.
Job if you're just out of uni and you don't really know what to do at a public school, you might have to do your own lessons, things like that. Whereas in a Hagwon, most of the time, it's just done for you. It's like walk in, you don't even have to think. You just take
right.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Like at a public school, you're going to face things like audits. I mean, that's you're going to have people doing observation. Hagwons will have some of that, I suppose, right?
But
it could be a lot more loosey goosey.
It's more about the parents. You know, they'll have a parents' day where they come and watch, and that's when everything is wired tight that day. But your lesson has been approved, pre-approved. Everything's been cut out, and there's glue and tape, and everything you need is there. I mean, it's a show, for the parents. It's advertising, in a way, So.
It's more of a hustle too. Like the Hagwon thing's it can be more of a hustle. Like it's a little more flexible if you want to work a second job, if you want to add it up. When I was coming back to Korea, I didn't go directly to Chunong. I had a gap waiting for the school year to start, so I had nothing to do. And one of my buddies in Busan, he was just leaving his Hagwon. It was teaching adults one-on-one, so it was really simple. There's no instructions really. It's just a conversation for 20 minutes. That's all it was 20 minutes, and then someone else walks in. And he said, he's like, hey, I'm leaving this. They'll give you whatever hours you want. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. It was just like simple money, and it's just a conversation with another adult. So it's not you're not dealing with behavioral issues like with children.
Oh man.
And there's no curriculum. There was like nothing there's no skills required. It was just like sit down, have a conversation for 20 minutes, meet somebody cool, maybe not, and then get paid. So I did that for I think almost 2 months. So I did have a Hagwon experience, but not the classic type.
Yeah, it's not the classic is probably the 6 or 7, maybe 10 kids. And you're a new when you're new, it's so terrifying standing there, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to kill the next 40 minutes. Anyone want to play hangman? That's like everybody goes to hangman first. That's the only thing you can think of in that moment. It's like, I got a whiteboard, I got a marker, we could play hangman. So get ready. Yeah.
Well, I want to shift one more time here, and this is kind of a bigger shift. Kevin said something that triggered a memory for me. You had mentioned going out for dinner with your buddy, and he was Kyopo, so he was a little more. He had been in Korea for a while, and he was just a little more familiar with things. And he called over a waiter. So that's something in Korea that you can do this in Korea. You definitely don't want to do this in most American cities. If you don't know this already, you don't want to shout, "Yo, order over here." That's not a cool thing.
I want to do that now, but I have to keep it back when I'm in the States.
Yeah, so that's definitely a thing here that I feel more comfortable with it now. I mean, I've been here for a decade, so I can definitely do it. It probably took me a few years before I could do it with the right voice.
I still like making you do it because you're still really like, come over here. Like hoping that they're gonna hear you. So I think it's really funny to keep it up.
It's Minnesotans. It's impossible for us. We can't do it. 20 years I can't do it. I feel just
you're just kneecap
horrible when I do it. Yeah.
It's like Yogi Yo.
You have to asking a question. What? Yeah.
It's from the abdomen. You really got to shout to cut through the din of the restaurant.
I have a quick aside. I was just wondering if you got this. I remember this. I went when I finally did go back to America after living in Korea. I was at a gas station and I handed the money with 2 hands, just like a weirdo. I was just doing. I just got in the habit of like 2 hands to give something, and kind of bowing a little bit.
I bow when I go
Yeah,
back.
I just reflexively bow all the time. And I must
can't
look
give it
like
up
the
now.
weakest, most, timid person, just always, bowing. And
At the 7-Eleven, right?
yeah,
Like,
and I just was wondering what the guy at the gas station in America was like. Why is he I was kind of holding my arm, holding my hand under. He's like, he must think my wrist hurts or something. So I have to like hold my wrist up as I,
He's got weak wrists.
yeah, it was just very strange.
when you're in like Gary, Indiana, yeah, it just doesn't translate the same way.
Exactly.
I remember when I came to Korea, I had no familiarity. This goes back to culture shock, but also etiquette. I had no familiarity with what Jack's talking about, with the bowing. I mean, you hear this, you see it on TV and stuff, but yeah, these behaviors, I mean, in 2021, these things are not the same as being in America. The firm handshake, you really just don't, I mean, they're shaking hands here, but it's not the usual firm handshake type of thing. And you'll experience that. It's kind of an awkward interaction.
It's or
bowing,
you
the
see like two
nodding with-
ajushis holding hands walking down the street. That's not a gay couple. You know what I mean? Like that's,
yeah,
those are a couple of buddies, and they're,
there's more
walking down the
skinship
street.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. The one that I remember, I always tell my students this when I start like with the freshman classes, as it's such a funny story. I had someone was giving me, it's like, right, I'm gonna use my iPad for this. This is a bad example because it wasn't an iPad. It was just a piece of paper. It was a one sheet piece of paper, and they handed it to me with two hands like this, right? And it's a very, your shoulders are square. And for me, I'm thinking like, what is this thing? Like, the Holy Grail, it's like, I feel like, I'm going on a quest, something like, it's this sacred paper.
The sacred document.
Like,
the parchment.
Yeah, it was like,
this is the worst thing you could do. I broke this etiquette rule. It took me a long time to be respectful with paper. I did this thing, I'm sitting at a table and I'm just throwing the paper and it's kind of sliding in front of the person.
Oh,
and then the next person,
the paper.
Yeah, I'm tossing the paper. And that's a big no. That's a middle finger to, everybody there.
Yeah.
And I did that. I got some dirty looks for that. I stopped doing that. But yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, some of those behaviors, you don't know that you're being rude, but once you learn and you begin to understand, I think it creates a lot of sympathy for future experiences when you meet someone else that's maybe on the street in Milwaukee or LA, and they're not just they don't have the same background as you. Like I feel like it's given me a lot more leeway with people. Like yeah, I feel the etiquette here is different enough that I made enough mistakes to kind of wake up to realize that, hey, not everybody's going to behave the same way as you. Like eye contact, that's a big one. When I was working in Chicago, this is a true story. There was a student who was referred to me. I was working as a school psychologist. So there was a student that was referred to the office, and because the student was new to Chicago, to the school, new to America, and the school was very worried, the teacher was very worried that the student was super shy and wouldn't make eye contact. Right.
Oh, I see where this is going. Yeah.
You already know the story because you're a teacher and you've been international. I mean, this now makes sense.
Yeah.
But this was all professionals in a major US city. These are people that have been working there for a long time, working with, they didn't see this. They referred the student to me and I didn't see it. I was like, well, there was no problem when we were, after we started talking for a little bit in the office, I was like, I couldn't suss anything out. It seems like a cool kid.
Yeah.
Or is it happening 12-year-old? right? Just got a little language issue. It's not that big of a deal. He's dealing with it. He has no problem with it. But as you're already assuming, it's a cultural thing. You don't make eye contact in his culture.
Did it click for you at that time, or did you put this together like years later when you?
No, I didn't. It did not click at that time. I was working as a resident, right? So
Mhm.
my practicum. So everything I'm doing in that situation was being referred to the psychologist that I was mirroring, right? So I had the meeting. I made my report, and I'm off to the next thing. And then it was sometime later that week that I was talking with her, and she just kind of laughed at me. She's like, "Yeah," she totally understood. She's like, "Yeah, just send the kid back to class and explain to the teacher to leave him alone." Like,
well, I mean, these kinds of things happen at the the governmental level. I mean, the invasion in Iraq without even having the expertise to understanding the culture, and not to make this political or anything like that, but I think we
but that's
overlook that stuff. Like even at the highest level.
That is a massive digression from a topic, but I think it's relative to the benefits of getting out of your own hometown and seeing the world and being able to look back and understand where you came from. Not to sound like we're all wizened or whatever,
right? Yeah,
but there is a value. There is a value.
I feel like I feel like I cut my teeth though if we're talking about like culture shock and adaptation. I cut my teeth in Thailand, and then Korea was easier, because that was the second time that I had been through that. I didn't feel the culture shock necessarily here. I felt way more relaxed when I came to Korea for the first time than I did when I went to Thailand for the first time. But I'm pretty sure if I had come to Korea for the first time before going to Thailand, it would have been equally kind of shocking to me. And so I think I think that the more you travel, you're chasing the dragon in a way. You know what I mean? Like I think the people that love to travel are chasing that first travel experience where they were like, I'm on an alien planet and this is the coolest thing. And it's, all my spidey senses are tingling. And I feel like, I feel like $1 million. It's a great feeling, but it's hard you have to kind of up the ante, I think, right? To get that feeling back, you have to go more extreme with your travels, right?
I see this with so many foreigners,
and that's not me. I'm not that person.
It's not all.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it with so many foreigners where they're like, yeah, so this winter break, where are you going? And you got the some people that they're in it for like the luxe vacation. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna go down to Bali and I'm gonna get this really nice hotel, whatever. And then you got these other people that they just they push a little too far. It's like the first year they're going to
ride a yak across Mongolia, cool. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like yaks in Mongolia. Hey, I'm going to go to Afghanistan and just check it out.
Yeah. Not the area where the Taliban are. The Taliban aren't there. It's a different area, totally. So don't worry.
And they'll be cool if I can meet them anyway. So
yeah. No, Taliban's next year, right? Yeah. You got to one up it. So we're running a little low on time. I wanted to touch one last subject before logging off here. And we can actually tie this over to the next podcast. But I did want to talk about adapting to becoming a teacher, because I think Kevin, you had some experience teaching professionally in America. Jack, you didn't teach at all in America, right?
The only teaching I ever did was I don't know if I told you guys this. I was a basketball player in high school. I got a scholarship to play Division II basketball in university, and then I got
like so many stories.
I went down to Division III, but as a basketball player, I did teach like kids camps and stuff like that. So I was, but I played center, so I couldn't really teach dribbling. I'm not a point guard or anything like that. I was
a tall guy playing center, and
I know, isn't it weird? Why would 6'8" playing center?
That's really strange.
Well, maybe in the NBA I'd be a little bit on the short side, but yeah.
So Jack had some experience with like crowd control. You could control a group of
right. I could entertain a group of kids like that and keep them. It's wrangling cats, man. So, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. So you weren't like a fish out of water. I had a background parallel to teachers in public schools, but the work I ended up doing in Korea is nothing like that, because it's not working with younger students with behavioral problems, and that's sort of, you know, corralling. And then Kevin, you probably have the most familiar teaching experience prior to coming to Korea. Like yours linked the closest, right? Because you were teaching at a university.
Well, yeah. Well, so first, remember, I was teaching at teaching Hagwon kids before I came to Korea with that Hagwon.
Oh, that's right too. I was
But
thinking
my
about your
actual
graduate
job, I was
studies.
teaching all through grad school and in my last year of undergrad as well. So I've been teaching for I was in a classroom, in front of a classroom, for 4 years before I came to Korea.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and this is why I steal all your lessons.
This is second nature for you. Yeah.
It's really my only
yeah.
professional job. Like Ryan and I have talked about this before, and this would be a topic for later as well, is how do you go back
we'll talk about teaching
this? Because, you know, like we've been in education forever. So like if we wanted to move back, well, how would we go? But for me, it's like I've only done education. That's the only job I've had, other than the bullshit college jobs, you know, like working fast food or working at like a big box market or whatever like that. But like my only professional career in my entire life has somehow been teaching. So it's cool.
So
I like teaching, but I have no idea what else.
Did you feel like a major adaptation to your teaching technique, style, needs when you came to Korea? Was it like a whole new thing? Was there many of your skills, were you able to just import them? Was it like, oh, I can teach here in America, I can teach here in Korea?
Well, I mean, my first year I was at a Hagwon with little kids, which I was not used to because I've been teaching at a uni for the last few years. So that was really strange. It's because, especially at a Hagwon, you know, like you're not really teaching. It's entertaining with alphabet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I remember actually at one point, like 8 months into my year and actually doing a lesson, I walk out with the class and I was like, I actually taught them something today. Holy hell. Like, I felt really good about actually teaching. So that was less so. But once I got into the uni, actually my first uni job, one of the reasons I think I got the job was because I was responsible for a public speaking class, which is what I had been teaching in the uni in the States for the previous 4 or 5 years. So it's like that just transitioned. So I just was doing more or less the same thing there. And of course, things have had to change a little bit. And I mean, just over time, I've figured out what works and what doesn't, as you have as well. And now, I mean, we're not teaching content either, so that's a different thing in most cases.
Yeah, there's a lot of refining that goes on with at least for myself, with my current job career. It's a lot of refining. Like I feel like it's before COVID and we're doing everything online temporarily. But prior to that, I felt like I had my basic class really dialed in, where there was never an issue of feeling nervous on stage or anything like this, or knowing, like, you know, when you have a lecture that's so refined, when you're asking those rhetoric questions, you're just ready for all the, you know, you're making your little jokes, your little lines, you know, the feedback that's coming before it even comes out of your mouth. You know, like how the ball's going to bounce. I've
told people this job is closer. It can sometimes be closer to a stand-up comedian than in that you're using the same material, and you've got, I'm telling the same joke that I told on Wednesday that I told on Monday. Yet,
because it works.
Well, right, but then by like Thursday, it loses a little punch at the. You know, your timing is like there's a sweet spot there somewhere in the middle of the week where you're just like hilarious, and then you don't get that the laughter that you got because the 7th time you tell the same joke that you did maybe the 3rd time. It's very strange.
Yeah,
but
I used to set up all my schedules in blocks. I like to have more days off campus than on campus. So there was a period of time where I would just work on Mondays and Wednesdays, but it was a crazy schedule. So I'm teaching every single possible period on
those
campus.
Are some long days, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
I would do it if I could, really, though. I love that. Yeah,
you got to love Red Bull too. Red Bull and a lot of Americanos. Right. But my point was going to be regarding reusing content. I would have a day like on Monday where I'm teaching 5 consecutive classes. Each class has a 15-minute break in between, and sometimes you got to change buildings, right? So you're running 5 classes that starts at 9:00 a.m., finishes 4:15 p.m. The first class, they don't get the best lecture. You would think so, because I'm super fresh,
I know.
but it's not the best one. It's usually the 10:30 and the noon. Those guys, they give me our best reviews. We have the best time. That's like peak Ryan right there. Those guys. And then the 4:15, I feel so bad for those guys. They get the strut.
You've only got
out, Ryan.
You only have so much. You must feel just shattered at the end of a day like that. You're just like, I can't even think. Just get me home.
It's something. I did it a couple of years. Well, I did it for quite a few years, and I've gone back and forth to it because there's a major benefit. Obviously, I was setting myself up for 4 days consecutive off. So if I was doing a lot of like cycling trips at the time, that was the big reason initially.
Sure.
So if I wanted to go bike to Busan, I could, on a weekend. But yeah, you're paying for it. And eventually it just got to be a little too taxing because on Wednesdays, in order to pull this off, I would actually work also Wednesday evening. It's where I saw you on campus.
That's right.
So
that's right.
9 a.m. to like 9 p.m.
I'm a psycho
and then
too.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been riding 2 hours on a bus to come teach a class that's 2 hours,
Another
boy.
masochist. Yeah. But it's fun. It's fun.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could wrap it here. I think this topic about developing as a teacher, and also I really want to take this conversation towards language. We talk about that just briefly. I know that listeners definitely want to hear about adaptation and both the difficulties and the fun and the awkwardness and the vast differences between English and Korean. Obviously, also as languages, the core reason that we are here. It's kind of the backbone of everything. So I think if you guys are cool, can we save that for next?
Oh,
next
absolutely. Week? I'm very interested in digging into your style of teaching as well. I think that would be really interesting to go deep on that too. So let's save that for a future podcast for sure.
Yeah, and actually that's a good way to put it. Like, so for people listening, the three of us, we've all worked for the same university for Kevin and I were around 12 years. Jack, what is it, like 30?
But yeah, right. Yes, I'm 82 next month. So yeah.
Yeah, right. So Kevin and I were on the same campus. Jack is on a different campus, so he's just outside of Seoul. So Kevin, I've seen weekly for a quarter of my life, and we've shared a lot of ideas about lessons and classroom control, grading. I mean, pretty much everything. Jack, we've talked a little bit, but I feel like there's more I want to learn about you.
I'd love to tell you guys about like what teaching uni was like, 15, 20 years ago. It was different
exactly
than what it is now. Yeah. And I think that it's better now than it was, 20 years ago.
And it's my understanding that when you were teaching prior to 2009, when we showed up, the objective, the actual like scripted objective of the course was fundamentally different, wasn't it?
It was specifically for the what do you call that test? The TOEIC exam. Oh, we were teaching the listening section of the TOEIC exam. So the teachers had to be intimately understand the TOEIC exam and the process of taking the listening test and how the answers are. There's a whole like it's more of like a kind of a hackers kind of you know what I mean, like there are some tricks that they use in this test, and kind of like taking an SAT course in America before you take the SATs.
Well, let's save that.
Sure.
Let's save that discussion maybe for next week, and then we can also go into like Korean language as well. We can talk about English and Korean language.
Oh man, I would love to hear your guys' journey. Mine is a very short one, so I'll be asking a lot of questions that day, probably. Yeah.
No, I think we've got 3 great examples for the listeners, because 3 very different.
Almost like archetypes of foreigners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really think so.
Because there is an archetype of me that, there's those of us here that are like me. I'm not all alone. We're troglodytes. You know, we live under the ground, but in caves and things like that. But no,
you gotta come out and get some vitamin D, man.
I know. I've got a whole solar panel up here that ready to go to work. So Anyway,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna call it for tonight, guys. For everyone listening, you know what we got to say. Don't forget to hit the subscribe on YouTube. Hit the like button on the videos. If you're listening to the podcast, you can find us on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Stitcher. I don't even know what that is. If you really want to help us out, leave a review in Apple Podcasts. I know that one.
That's huge. That really helps us a lot. Yeah, it's enormously helpful. Yeah.
And it's really helpful for like my ego. So like throw it up there. It makes me feel good. I really appreciate it. Or shoot us an email anytime if you guys have any ideas for topics or questions you want to ask us. Our email is thesoulpatch@gmail.com. And that is the soulpatch@gmail.com. If you have anything you want to ask.
And soul like the city, SEOUL.
Yeah, I'm not doing a good job of this. Yes.
You got to get the pun in there. Yeah.
Is it even a good name for this? I don't know. Anyway, that's it. Take care.
I like to pay double respect to the people that made me what I am today.
Later.
All right.
Laughing gear.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
The quiet man.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Dopamine. Jim.
It's all my love. It's all my love. It's all my love.
The brain.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Hey, Bobby.
Let the bass go.